Welcome back. You are watching the internet. In this video today, we're going to go over how long does it actually take to build things with Yes Code. That's one of the questions. And then we're going to go over what's the real question that matters here, because you're asking no code or yes code. There's actually a couple deeper questions. And then finally, I'll go over how you should approach this and then what tools I will recommend for that. In this video, I'm also going to show you how I started building this application, which took me roughly a week. Don't worry, there's more to it. And then in the last 2 days, I've put this together, not even working that much. So to answer the question of how long it actually takes, first of all, we need to address the paradox of choice. And the paradox of choice basically says that the more choices you have, the worse your life is going to get. All right, I'm kind of exaggerating, but essentially when you do things in yes code, you're going to end up with way more questions than you have with no code. So no code, you're essentially, what's my front end? What's my database? How am I going to do this? And that's already enough questions. When you have something that's actually written in full code, you have to think about where you're going to host your database, where you're going to host your app itself, what you're going to use for your ORM if you are going to use one, your folder structure, file names, because if you change any of that, you have to go in and make sure all the file paths are right. There's a lot to think about. And that means whenever you're building an app, especially in the first week of kind of laying out the structure, you're going to have you're going to have a decision every 10 minutes. And obviously decisions are not good for your brain. They slow you down. They're not good for work. I'll put it that way. They're going to slow you down and make what you're building take way longer. The other thing with code is if we just come over to the app. So this is that page I was just showing you, and I'm still not really sure why it's doing this, why it has all these lines. I just tried to edit the default homepage and I kind of messed it up. So, I mean, right there, we're already at a problem. But let's just go to the API workflow. This is a Next.js app, which I was hosting on Vercel. And if we come down to events, so this is my installation. So this is what happens when people install the app. And first of all, when you're building something in code, you have to think about where the code's running. Is it safe? Can it be run on the browser? And then they can see potentially API keys and sensitive info? Or are you going to be running it in the server? And that's all stuff to think about. And it gets incredibly complex, especially if you're a novice. The other point I wanted to make on this is that this process alone probably took me the better part of a week. I mean, it was just so hard to get things working because every time something breaks, you're adding in console log and then can I print this? Is it a text object? Is it a JSON object? How would I print this? And you just end up spending so much time debugging. It just takes forever to debug, and that is one of the main problems. The last thing that I'll say about why it takes so long to build with Yes Code is front-end issues. So this is a funny image. It's kind of satirical because essentially it's saying, I love CSS, and obviously you can see the text doesn't fit. It's broken. So CSS is a pain in the ass, and this is kind of the meme when it comes to like front-end development is it kind of sucks and it's really hard. So that's essentially, it's going to take you so long to build something out. So let's just say like, what are the real questions that you need to be asking? So first of all, the way you need to be thinking about this, and I took this from the Lean Startup, which is a really good book I recommend. Um, Essentially, most people are going to have one of two questions. The first is, can I build this? If you've ever heard of Figure, then Figure, then you might know about this as the humanoid robot, kind of like Tesla Optimus. The question here is not will people buy this, all right? If we give companies a worker that can work for a fifth of the wage of a regular human worker, never calls out, never shows up late, never talks back, I mean, people are going to buy it, right? But the question is, how do you build that? That seems really hard. So their question is, can they actually build it? Now, for most people, the question is going to be, can I get customers? All right. The question is not like people, like you're not saying, I know people will buy this if it was a thing, because you'd be in a completely different situation. What you're saying is, I'm pretty sure I can build this, but can I get customers if I do build it? And the important thing to think about is what question am I actually trying to answer when I'm building this product, right? So with my business, with my project that I was building, at a certain point I kind of left it. I had been working for a week, and then I leave town and I start reading the Lean Startup, and at a certain point I'm listening to it and I go, holy shit, I've just been wasting my time. Because the question is not, can I build everything perfectly so that all this code is just one beautiful line and I have a comment for every single thing? The question is, can I get people to use this? That's what I actually care about, right? So then the conclusion starts to become a little bit more clear. So the other question that you can ask is, first of all, what's the main question I'm trying to answer right now? Lastly, we're asking how much abstraction do I actually want? All right. And so you might have seen people where they're like, Webflow is an abstraction, man. You're not a real web developer if you use abstraction, man. And that's just stupid. All right, I'm going to explain why. So essentially, everyone uses some layer of abstraction, and this image is a really good kind of explainer of that concept because you have Python programmers down here, and I don't know if you can see, but they say, wait, it's all an abstraction? And then C++ is behind them because that's what Python is written in, and they go, it always was. And then right behind them is assembly language and then machine code. And you realize that Python is an abstraction, even though it's programming, and even though lots of valuable things are built with Python, because everyone uses some layer of abstraction. The beauty of abstraction is that we don't need to use machine code. I mean, if everyone had to write their programs in machine code, we'd still be living in the dark ages. It just takes so incredibly much longer, and it's so much more complex than using an actual programming language that someone put together for you. Um, and this is the essential thing to remember from this. So, first of all, we're here to enjoy ourselves and importantly, solve problems. All right. Because what I've found so far is that satisfaction doesn't exactly come from just like building things, but building things that actually solve a problem and do something cool. All right. I mean, cool is kind of a weird part of that, but I would argue it's very important. But essentially, the more problems you can solve and the more you can learn and practice, the more you're going to be rewarded, like financially, emotionally, just all the ways you're going to be rewarded for solving more problems. And abstraction, as we see with Python, you can build things way faster. So you're just going to have a way better output, way more output by using something that's low code. And so let's talk about how you should approach this. And so, of course, we've been leading up to this, and this probably isn't what you want to hear, but you should probably use a no code tool. All right. And first of all, I just want to address coding seems very cool. It is fucking cool. All right. Let's be honest. I mean, just sitting there with like your nice theme. Look at this. Zed is so fucking beautiful. If I could go to dark mode. Oh my God. Jesus. And then you could pop up the terminal, dude. And you could just look so fucking cool and feel so fucking cool. But let me show you a startling statistic. Most programmers make under 100K. I'm not sure if that's global or just in the US, but in the US it's if it is over 100K, it's not much over, like on average. Most programmers are depressed. A staggering percentage, I think it's like 60 or 80% are not happy with their jobs. And I mean, everyone's been thinking it, but in 10 years, programmers are going to be more blue collar than today's blue collars workers are, right? When AI can do a lot of the coding, and it can, because I'm going to show you that in a second. When AI can do most of the programming, I mean, it's not going to be cool anymore, all right? Building things is going to be cool, but writing code is going to be like digging a hole. It's kind of a joke at this point to say someone goes and digs a hole because it's the most mundane thing you could do. Um, and the other thing with code is you can make things really kind of pretty in your mind. Like with this, I spent so much time like thinking about like the the organization of the folder and how it's going to be set up and how the functions are going to work with each other and making them modular. And what you have to realize is the beautiful thing about the internet, and actually, hang on. What I'm about to say is from this book, which is free online. It's by the owners of Basecamp, DHH, David Hannemeyer Hansen, who's fucking cool. He's a race car driver. He invented Ruby on Rails. I mean, that guy's badass. And then the other one, I forgot his name. I'm really sorry. Um, but one of them wrote this amazing book, and it's really short. It's actually very like, this is a chapter. It's like one page. So I read a little bit of this book, and essentially he says that the internet is completely impermanent. I mean, obviously there's the digital footprint and all that whatever nonsense. But the truth of the matter is if you're building your own like website or your own product on the internet, you can push an update whenever you want. You can update it every hour, every day if you want. And it's just not worth it to spend, most of the project's life in development and not making any money, not talking to customers, not getting any feedback. It's much better to just push out whatever you can as fast as possible. And then from there, you can iterate. You can focus on what people care about. Do they want it to be more beautiful or have this feature or whatever? Because most of the time, you're going to find out what you're building is probably not that good. You need to talk to customers and see what they want. Um, and by the way, even if you're scratching your own itch, you're only one person. And if you can find another person that's exactly like you that wants the same product, that's great, but you need more than one person to run your company. All right. You're most likely not charging $10,000 a month for that customer. You're like charging 10 or 100 or 1,000, and you're going to need a lot of those customers to actually make a good living. So yeah, the focus is on finding a lot of customers. And that's why I say doing things the ugly way is the best way to do it. Now, you will still be using code, all right? And I'm just going to demonstrate this because this is the app that I've built. So remember all of this. I mean, this does a fraction of what I'm about to show you actually does. And it took me probably twice or like 5 times as long, all right? Um, so this is the workflow that I've been building over the last few days. And this encapsulates everything that this program did and like a whole lot more. And we could see, I mean, it's fairly complex. There's a lot of different start and endpoints and nodes going on here. Um, but I just want to show you one thing, which is here I'm using code. All right. And this is because I'm trying to upload a file. For some reason, when you transcribe a text using Whisper, you can't like OpenAI Whisper, you can't just send a URL and they can pull the file. You have to send your own file, which is kind of hard on like if it's not, local on your computer and you're using a server or something. Um, so I had to code this, and I'm gonna break a secret to you. I didn't code basically any of this. I started and I just sent it all to Claude, and I was like, yo, this is not working. And I just kept sending it the error messages that I would get, and eventually it fixed it. So you can still code. I mean, you can still have that creative freedom. I guess this is kind of pretty. You don't really need this. Um, and then the other thing I'll show you is for this is one of my, or I think in my last video, I had to basically create or download a YouTube video and then edit it. And this webhook post is going to a giant Google Cloud function where I'm literally like downloading the YouTube video and handling all of that logic. So there's still things that you can't do with no code, but it's usually best to just outsource that to Google Cloud Functions, have AI write it for you, and stay focused on the primary problem, which for most people is going to be, can I get users or can I get customers? Okay, and then I just want to go over this. So, I'll show you the front end actually. So this is the front end. Maybe I could show you how the installation works. I just want to show you, this is my app. So I'm using AppSmith. I'll talk about that in a second. But I just want to show you, this is the installation page, and we have some simple JavaScript here. On the dashboard, we also have JavaScript. There's JavaScript on this page. And essentially, there's already a lot of complexity when it comes to building a product. And most of it you can't even realize because you haven't thought through the full project. It almost doesn't make sense to just spend 4 hours thinking about it. Once you start taking action in the fastest way you know possible, then you'll find out what the problems are. And so I ran into these issues like authentication when I was building my app, and sign up and log in and just doing the UI in the first place. And I mean, like there's so many problems. You're going to get a chance to code, and my point is it's still going to be hard. Even if you use no code, it's still going to be hard. All right? So, this is my app, and I haven't added any information about it yet, but I will, because I've built out the MVP and now I can afford to actually spend time promoting it, because I didn't take a month to build out this MVP. So let's go just install, and I'll just show you how this works. So I'm going to install in a few locations, allow, and that's going to redirect me to this page where it essentially pulls a code out of the URL, sends it over to this workflow, and then, not this workflow, this one. Holy cow, this is a fat workflow. And then on this workflow, it's processing all of this. It's doing a bunch of authentication in the background to make sure everything went right. And then it's returning information about the session to sign me in to this page. And with AppSmith, that's actually pretty easy. So essentially what you do is when they're installed, you just store that to the data in the back end, and then it keeps them signed in. So it's pretty straightforward. But this still took me, I don't know, 4-6 hours. I mean, this whole workflow took me way more than that, but like proofing it out and getting it working, I mean, it still takes a long time. All right. So yeah, then we're on the dashboard, and the great thing, this is AppSmith, all right? And the great thing about this is also kind of the worst thing about it is look at this, look at the way you move stuff around. I mean, this is like, I don't know, it's like, I want to say it's like Legos. I could put that there. I could put it in the center. Okay, so I'm doing this intentionally, but there is no kind of lines or guides as far as I could figure out, which is kind of annoying. So that's why I say it's kind of the downfall. It's not responsive either. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care. This is built for desktops, and people are not going to be using this app on a day-to-day basis. They're either going to be getting emails or using the back-end functionality. All right. So, I mean, the greatest thing about AppSmith is just like, it's so easy to build out a UI. I mean, legit, like this UI right here, this is like the main bulk of it. This probably took me 20, 30 minutes at most. Like just putting things together, kind of making it look nice, and you're done. I mean, that's literally all there is to it. And it's just great. So that brings me back, kind of got sidetracked, but as far as I understand, based on the lean startup and as well as Basecamp's kind of view of things, a good way to succeed in the business world, this isn't the only way, is it might be the only way, is to first identify a problem. And in your case, before you have a business, this is going to be the main proposition, the main thing that you're trying to solve for your customers. And then devise a way to test that, or devise a way to solve it and then test that as soon as possible and figure out if you've actually solved the problem. All right. And then once you figure that out, the fastest and easiest way to do it, then you just do it. And after you're done, then you can move on to the next problem. So the beauty of what I'm doing right here is I built out this entire app. It only took me, I don't know, probably 18 hours in total. And all I have to do is promote it. And if I can get users, then I can like focus on what they're saying, what their problems are. If I can't get users, I mean, big whoop. I've built an app. It was good for experience. Now I know how to do this, and I can move on. But yeah, I mean, I'll just move on to the tools I recommend. So I'm going to make this its own video, but just so you have it, I mean, first of all, use Supabase. Airtable sucks. You could also use like another database, but Supabase is really easy. Another thing you don't think about is like when I built my app in Vercel, oh shit, I had like a database, and okay. And with this database, this is just a straight up Postgres database. And it means that if I want to write like how to get this out, I'm gonna have to create an API route in my app that's like allows me to read that value. And for each different amount of data that you're selecting, which this took so long in its own. I mean, just to build another route is going to take so long. So everything you do just takes way longer. Use Supabase. I mean, hopefully nothing here is sensitive, but they already have built-in routes for essentially whatever you need. It's already built in. You just send a HTTP request and you're good to go. Um, so Supabase is great. AppSmith, I want to show you something cool about AppSmith, and it's this. Okay, here we go. So AppSmith pricing, look at this. Free. I'm not paying anything. Unlimited users. And yeah, you can't brand it. You can't change the URL or the branding, but that's not that is not what's gonna cause people to not use your company. All right. The reason they're not going to use your company is because it doesn't solve a problem. And this is the best way to prove it out. All right. If you're building mobile apps, I would recommend probably Flutterflow, but I haven't used it. I just know Flutterflow is very popular. And then the other thing is WeWeb. WeWeb seems very robust. It's a little bit newer, but I really like their kind of way of doing things. Um, and then finally, for your workflows, I would use either NAN or Make. NAN is going to be a little bit cheaper if you self-host, and then Make's going to be a little bit more expensive. And I don't really like Make. Um, and if you're concerned about cost, which a lot of the time that's kind of the thing keeping you from using like no-code tools, well, first of all, AppSmith is totally free. I mean, a lot of those no-code app builders have a free plan. You might not be able to brand your app, but so what? And by the way, if you're trying to build a mobile app, just build a web app, dude. Like, I mean, it's going to be so much work to build a mobile app, and you probably won't get any users because it'll just go into the queue of 10,000 other apps on the App Store that are never used. All right, so build a web app, try to get people to use that, and then if they like it, you can build a mobile app and put it in the App Store and do all that good stuff. Um, and then lastly, so AppSmith is free. NAN can be self-hosted for $6 a month. I have a video on that. Well, just click on my channel, you can find it. And then the other thing is, I forgot to mention Supabase in here, but Supabase, it's either free, which it is for me right now. I'm not using much bandwidth. There are many advanced features. Or if you want to actually like, kind of scale up, it's like 25 bucks a month. It's really cheap. So way cheaper than like a no code front end builder. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's essentially the entire video. I don't know what to say. All right, I'll try to put it on the screen, but there should be a couple of videos. One is going to be how you can self-host NAN, and then the other is going to be how you can use NAN to automate reposting YouTube videos.